welcome to another React. Today we're diving into some more Warhammer as I learn about one of the Primarchs, Guilliman. Enjoy! Roboute Guilliman, which, I definitely know the name, but I don't know anything about. Is this the one that Tetra really likes? Is this the lion guy? Smooth. Oh, this coffee's so good. I would shout out the coffee, except I'm not partnered with them. I'm partnered with an energy drink company, so I can't. But Tetra can. So, but yeah, this is the Guilliman. Yes. Okay, I know the Guilliman. Okay. So Roboute Guilliman, the greatest Primarch. Is he really the greatest, or is it just like he's the Ultramarines guy? Okay. All right. Not the line, but Tetra does like him. Is that why you guys are Guilliman's blueberries? Is that why? So that's I know the blueberries. I learned what the blueberries are. Yeah, briefly, because their armor is blue, and I was like, oh, he's the main character. What? This is the accountant. No, he isn't the greatest. Why do they lie to us? Okay, so one's 27 minutes. Not bad. Not bad. Yes. Yep. Yes. Okay. All right, let's jump right into it. If it's a little loud or quiet, just let me know. I won't read it out loud, but just be like, yeah, good, bad, or, Lion's the best. Totally biased opinion. He's kind of pro-tag energy. Trazyn, the infant, is the main character. Oh, Sag times. All right, here we go.
There are many chapters of Space Marines in the Warhammer 40k galaxy. Each of them is unique in their own way, for better or worse. For better, you have the Blood Raven's heroism in the face of constant treachery and hardship, as well as rampant kleptomania. Or the Lamenter's unflinching resolve in spite of the universe doing its best to step on them at every given opportunity. For worse, you have the Blood Angels, who, while quite noble and cultured, have a tendency to devolve into rage monsters every now and then. Or the Space Wolves in general. The Viking LARPers are worse in every regard, there is no better. But everything needs a default, something to look at and recognize as being the average, the standard metric by which all others are compared to. And as far as Space Marines go, this would be the Ultramarines. Not excelling at anything but good at everything, they're more or less the golden standard of the Adeptus Astartes. This has gotten them the reputation as Mary Sue's, which, to be fair, at least in the older days of Warhammer, was more than well deserved. I would say nowadays that it's waned away, though it will never fully be gone, both due to the past intense favoritism, and because some people are always going to complain that their favorite faction isn't the poster boy of the setting, so obviously the one that is just the worst thing ever.
Oh, wait, hold on, I want to read that. Bro, what? Slorpnaka? The fuck is that? Is that a real thing? Chapter from White Dwarf, number 287, page 11, paragraph 3 should clearly be on the cover of the... Oh, because he's making fun of the people. Okay, all right, fair. Okay, continue.
That their favorite faction isn't the poster boy of the setting, so obviously the one that is just the worst thing ever. And Mary Sue tendencies aside, all Space Marines come from a source, their Primarch, the father of the Legion. And while the Ultramarines may in many ways be the average Space Marine, the vanilla ice cream of the Adeptus Astartes, I propose that their Primarch is anything but. Roboute Guilliman is my favorite Primarch, and indeed the one I consider to be the greatest of them all. While I don't think it's controversial anymore to say that he's become a pretty cool guy, saying he's the best might raise some disagreements. But let me tell you his story, and hopefully you too will see why Roboute Guilty Spark truly is the brightest of the Emperor's sons.
Okay, so Tetra likes his character, and so does Pancreas. Sus. So he did say it would raise suspicion, though. It does sound orcish. You think it's orcish? Weird knob slum. It sounds like they're trying to diss us, but I don't know what they're saying.
With the Emperor's foremost son as Lord Commander of the Imperium, a new hope stirred.
Roboute Guilliman is the Primarch of the Ultramarines chapter / Legion of Space Marines, and was the 8th one found by the Emperor of Mankind. Before that, though, it's of importance to note that he was one of the only Primarchs to land on a world that wasn't a complete shithole. Macragge was more or less ancient Rome mixed with ancient Greece with better technology. It even had limited spacefaring capabilities despite the Age of Strife making such things all but impossible for most other worlds. Now, oftentimes it wasn't exactly a nice place to live. They had the attitude of Spartans towards having children. If they're weak, off the cliff they go. If they aren't, it's time for military training at the ripe old age of 6. But
wow, what great options. I love that. Cool. This already sounds phenomenal.
you know, compared to planets like Chemos or Nuceria, I'd take a bit of child soldiering any day of the week. Builds character, as well as grip strength when you have to fight your bunkmate to the death for the last scrap of roast boar. At least the continental crust of the planet was made of cardboard like it was on Vulcan's homeworld. Guilliman was found by Connor Guilliman as a baby, who was an influential ruler and all-around swell guy who pushed towards meritocratic reforms and generally making things nicer for everyone. Unlike any other Primarch, however, he also had a mom. Technically only Connor's seneschal, which is a fancy way of saying secretary in medieval speak, Tarasha Utin would help raise Roboute into the man he would become alongside Connor, and indeed, when faced with problems, Guilliman would frequently think on her advice on how to handle the matter. Must have been one hell of a smarty pants if the son of a god was willing to bow to her advice on matters. As for Connor, however, he was a man trying to push for societal reform in a civilization that was essentially ancient Rome in space. If you aren't sure why that's a bad sign for Connor's future, do some reading on the Gracchus brothers to see how the ancient—
Okay, I was gonna say, what happened, wait, to the Gracchus brothers? The Gracchus brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, introduced a number of populous agrarian and land forms in the 130s and 120s BC. Either were heavily opposed by the patrician senate. Both brothers were murdered by mob violence after political stalemates. I was thinking of something else, but okay. I have a sneaking suspicion it's not going to be, you know, like rainbows and sunshine and like a happy fairy tale ending. Crazy thought, but that's what I'm thinking.
Romans viewed societal reform. And sure enough, while Roboute was away on campaign against a people known as the Illyrians, because sometimes Games Workshop doesn't even try to hide their historical inspirations, Connor was slain by a treacherous ally who was sick of all this talk of equality, fair governance, and not holding the position of emperor up for the highest bidder. Guilliman lived at least, so that's something. As for Roboute, he had originally planned to murder his father's killer stone dead, and had the chance to do so, but there's a few things you gotta know about the man. One, during his campaign against the Illyrians, Guilliman came to realize that many of them were willing to surrender, and therefore he came to accept that diplomacy was just as valid a tactic as the Doom Guy school of negotiating. Two, Guilliman had always been intelligent. He was given command over the Illyrian campaign at the age of 12, after all, and with his massive brain power, he realized that if he killed Galen, his father's murderer, he would set a precedent for the future, and so he deferred to the Senate for Galen's fate. This shows that Guilliman not only is able to keep control of himself in most situations, most importantly, he's able to look towards the future when he decides upon a course of action. And you'd best believe I'll be coming back to that personality trait later in the video.
So he seems like, excuse me, like he's pretty well brought up, intelligent, kind of took over at 12 years old is insane. Tagline of 40k in the grimdark of the far future, there's only war, so the universe reflects that. GW copies homework a lot. Sus. Crazy times. Roman politics have a history of backstabbing and death. Lots of death. Sneaking suspicion. I feel like, you know, I said it before, but I don't think he's going to make it, Chad. As with the salamanders, 9% of the time, he means willing to negotiate with humans. Okay, all right. I mean, he seems like pretty... yeah, quote-unquote stable, I was gonna say. He's the most mentally stable Primarch so far.
As for Galen, the Senate decided that he would be ceremonially beheaded on a fancy rock, both another historical allusion to Rome and something that would become standard practice.
Wait, he was gonna behead the person who killed his father? But here's another thing. He knew who killed his father, but nothing was done about it? Or is he like a high political figure so he couldn't, and now he's planning to do it in a way that's like, haha, whoopsie? Or is he gonna explain it? Well, it's a very low bar. That's what the Senate did. Oh, okay. 12 years old, but like gene-engineered god human. I mean, yeah, he's got it all together. He's a super genius, too.
Amongst the Ultramarines if they found any traitors in their ranks. Guilliman himself had won the Senate over to his side and pushed his father's dream into fruition, turning Macragge into a realm where you need to earn your place in life, not simply be born into it. When he was found by the Emperor, Guilliman had been ruling for 5 years and Macragge had turned into quite the little empire, having annexed several systems purely through diplomatic means. It was on its way to acquiring many more. This would become the basis for the realm of Ultramar as we know it in modern 40k. Once Guilliman was put in command of his Ultramarines, the 13th Legion and the one whose gene seed was derived from none other than himself, he went to work throughout the Great Crusade in a way that no other Primarch managed to equal. Using his brilliant mind, and perhaps most importantly, his willingness to actually talk to people, he achieved the highest number of compliant worlds among all the Primarchs. Though, to be fair, some other Primarchs had more military victories than he did. For all you fans of Primarchs like Leman Russ or Angron, take note. You get a lot more shit done when your first contact protocol is saying hello. It's also possible that upon seeing his immaculate jawline, many planets willingly join the Imperium for no other reason than that.
Immaculate jawline. I was gonna say one of those, like, skibbity terms, but I don't know what it's called, so never mind.
Can't say I blame him. I mean, you could cut diamonds with this man's chin. On the topic of other Primarchs, unlike many of them, he had a damn fine head on his shoulders. Though, to be fair, he still had his flaws. He ensured that planets he brought to compliance were turned into model worlds for the Imperium, or at the very least that the taxes arrived on time and they had a standing army. That way, things wouldn't just melt the moment the Ultramarines left the system. He wasn't like Angron, where planets would surrender in fear of the World Eaters showing up and then be butchered anyways. Nor was he like some of the other loyalist legions such as the Space Wolves, whose barbarity, while at least in part a cultivated appearance, didn't exactly paint the Imperium in the best of lights. He was more than willing to listen to the counsel of others, though at times he was arrogant and thought his way was certainly the best way unless shown otherwise. For instance, Alphegon was not much of a fan of Guilliman due to his dislike of the tactics Omegarius most favored, believing them to be rather dishonorable. To be entirely fair to Guilliman, targeting civilian populations isn't exactly the nicest thing to do, but it did get results as far as the Great Crusade was concerned. And
Okay, so first mistake, he's attacking civilians, he said?
it was Corvus Corax who taught him many lessons about
Fuck Horus. Don't we hate Horus? I thought we didn't like Horus.
how irregular tactics and use of understrength units could still carry the day, which was something Guilliman, with his Romanesque mindset of ranked formations and the like, had trouble adapting to. Nevertheless, despite any dislike he may have held for his brother's tactics, he respected all of them for their abilities, even if he felt they weren't
Corvus, not Horus? Oh, fuck. Close enough. My bad. Okay, I take it back. They're cool. They're chill.
something he should incorporate. He even had what he called his dauntless few, brothers he felt that fighting alongside he could win any war there was to fight. They were Leman Russ, Ferrus Manus, Rogel Dorn, and Sanguinius. And with that bit about Corvus being said, while Guilliman may have had trouble coming up with novel ideas, once he found a way to incorporate something into his own tactics, he was going to find every conceivable way to improve and expand upon them. Basically, you can wrong-foot him once, but the next time you try and use the same trick, he's going to put you in the dirt. Corvus even admitted he could never beat Guilliman in simulations from that point forward. He might win a battle, but never the war. While many planets under his jurisdiction were still hellholes even after his restructuring of things, which funnily enough includes Nuceria, I propose there's reasons for this. For instance, in the specific case of Nuceria, I think it's likely he avoided dicking around with it because it was Angron's home, and while Guilliman was technically in charge of it, he probably didn't want to piss off his brother by screwing around with his home planet. Not that
Okay, smart. Not messing with his brother. Very nice.
Angron probably would have given two shits, but what are you going to do about that? The other reason some planets weren't brought up to snuff 100% was that the Primarchs were required to maintain a certain tempo to their conquests in the Great Crusade, and properly restructuring every planet to turn into a new Macrog likely would have required time Guilliman simply wasn't allowed to have. That's largely just me theory crafting though, so don't take that as the word of God, that's the reason for it. And even beyond not being able to fix every planet up proper, Guilliman still has a few black marks on his record. While he wasn't involved in the destruction of the 11th and 2nd Legions, Guilliman almost certainly benefited from absorbing their numbers into his own, which likely helped him bring as many worlds into the Imperium as he did. He was also one of the Primarchs, the other being Rogel Dorn, who came up with the idea that the memory of what the two missing ones did should be removed from the minds of the rest of the Primarchs, showing that if nothing else, Guilliman is above a little bit of cloak and dagger 1984 style. His most colossal fuck-up, however, is likely the time he helped the Emperor turn up the heat on the capital of Lorgar's world Monarchia by a few thousand degrees. When the Emperor came down on Lorgar for spreading the word that Big E was a god, he chose the Ultramarines and Guilliman to help him burn it down. Humiliated and forced to kneel before his creator and his brother, Lorgar would come to resent Guilliman and the Emperor, planting the seeds of the Horus Heresy.
I was gonna say that's not gonna turn out well later. He's Gigabrain. Empires don't like wholesome reforms generally. Gee, I wonder why. It's crazy. Best to avoid Angron in general, to be honest. Is he supposed to be like, I mean, okay, we did learn about him. He's kind of a little cuckoo bananas, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, that's what I was saying. There's said Horus Heresy at the bottom, and I just like brain activation. I was like, wait a minute, I hate Horus. So that's why. But he mentioned Corvus, so my brain just like automatically turned. Angron is very angry. Very, very angry. Yeah, probably don't want to mess with someone who's like absolutely furious the entire time. Good call.
Guilliman didn't hesitate in the slightest to do what the Emperor asked of him, but privately felt discomfort over it and felt that it had irreparably damaged relations between the two legions. Yeah, I don't think you need to be a genius savant to figure that one out, G-Man. Going forth, we enter the tremendous fun times of the Horus Heresy. In Guilliman's case, he was initially in the dark about Horus's treachery, and when Horus ordered Guilliman to embark on a good old-fashioned orc cleanse alongside the word-bearers, he was happy to oblige. He felt it was a good opportunity to begin mending relations between the two legions as well as himself and Lorgar. Unfortunately, it was too little 40 years too late, and Lorgar had become corrupted by chaos by this point. On the planet of Kalth, what was intended to be a casual orc genocide turned into a bloodbath as the word
I'm sorry, did he just say a casual orc genocide? What?
Bearers turned on them and began decimating the Ultramarines. Nearly half the Legion was destroyed, and Guilliman himself was vented out into the vacuum of space without a helmet. For most people, this would have understandably guaranteed their death. Guilliman decided
that was going to be my question. Would not automatically kill him. Okay, continue.
That breathable atmosphere was for pussies and began punching word bearers so hard their heads exploded. After that, Corphaeron stabbed the...
What? I didn't hear that correctly. Hold up.
People, this would have understandably guaranteed their death. Guilliman decided that breathable atmosphere was for pussies and began punching word bearers so hard their heads exploded. After that, Corphaeron stabbed the Primarch with a chaos-corrupted blade, much like Horus was, in order to turn him to the traitor side as well. Guilliman's response was to punch Corphaeron so hard his heart briefly stopped. The word bearers were driven off, as despite their sudden betrayal, giving Guilliman any amount of time to breathe and form strategy means you've already lost the battle. Things after this don't get any...
Punched him so hard his heart stopped. That's crazy.
Better for Guilliman, however. Lorgar and Angron raised merry hell in the realm of Ultramar with their forces, and as Guilliman was chasing them around, a blanket of warp storms cut him off from the rest of the galaxy. He decided that if he couldn't confirm the Imperium was still standing, he would act on the assumption that it had fallen and it was up to him to carry on its ideals. Thus, he created the Imperium Secundus, both to carry on the Imperium's torch and to round off the Roman Empire references with his very own Byzantine Empire. Macragge is even the perfect little Constantinople. Of course, what happens here could be a video all on its own, but I'm trying to keep the focus.
Wait, random question, just because the picture, but I'm listening. Is this how actually tall they are compared to like a normal person, or is it just like the depth perception, or is it just like these? They're not like super tall, right? It is technically possible IRL. Yeah, but that's such a crazy like line to be like, oh yeah, well he just like he punched him so hard his heart stopped like while they're in space. Yep, they're huge. Okay, because I saw these guys in the background, and I was like, oh, they kind of seem like, almost, average height. They're like 12 feet tall. Bro, why do I keep taking L's, man? 12 feet tall. Why are they so... I don't... Forget. They're going to be tall, and I'm just going to be sad about it. Okay.
On Guilliman. So to sum it up, he fought Angron and Lorgar while the former was being turned into a demon by the latter. Conrad Kurz ran wild across Macragge for a while and even reached his adopted mother, who was completely unfazed by his bullshit. The Lion and Sanguinius showed up, they all argued a bit about what to do from this point going forward, and then when Guilliman realized that the Imperium was in fact still a thing and Terra was under siege, he dropped the entire Byzantium business and helped the Blood Angels so they could reach Terra. While he never participated in the siege himself, he would do his best to head there with utmost speed. Indeed, the Ultramarines and Dark Angels gunning it for Terra to relieve it was part of the reason the siege played out the way it did. After Big E was killed and Horus killed even harder, Guilliman would help things going forward in the Imperium. He of course participated in the Scouring, the driving off of all remaining traitorous Astartes to the Eye of Terror, and Games Workshop's next big project to avoid doing any work on the old world. He also penned the Codex Astartes, which divided all the legions into chapters as we know them now. Not all of his brothers were a fan of this, but eventually he got his way. One day he came into contact with Fulgrim, and as the two fought, Fulgrim nearly cut off his damn head. Fulgrim's sword was also poisoned, because of course it was. Locked away into stasis so that he...
Because of course it was. Causing heads to explode with a punch seems even more wild to me. Okay, true, but they were also in space, so I think if you punch the helmet, and then because in space, and like, then it would explode, because, yeah, space. I don't actually know. I don't know a lot of science, but that's what I would assume. If you ever became a Daemon Prince, you would get taller. Nah, she'd get smaller and fluffy. Hello? What the ham? Smaller but super fast. Man, space.
Could never truly die. For 10,000 years his body was held in public display Lenin style, and eventually where he lay would become a site of holy pilgrimage. During this time, the Imperium would become what we know it as today, the worst place you could ever possibly live. It was rumored that even in stasis as he was slowly but surely healing from his grievous wounds. But even with this, there he lay for millennia, comatose and doing nothing as the Imperium fell apart around him. And then, 10,000 years later, Belisarius Cawl and the Eldar fashioned him a fancy new suit of armor, Yvraine kissed his boo-boo so they would be all better, and he woke up. As he awoke, he realized he had a problem in the form of a horde of Chaos Space Marines surrounding him, quaking in fear and about to do their damnedest to make sure he was killed properly this time. In one corner, we have hundreds of chaotically enhanced super soldiers, blessed by the gods themselves, some of whom have no doubt been fighting for over 10,000 years and may even remember when Guilliman was put in his coffin. In the other corner, we have someone who just woke up from the world's longest his power nap, was probably a bit dazed and confused on account of sleeping off the world's most poisonous hangover, and didn't even have a damn weapon in his hand. The Chaos Marines never stood a chance, because apparently when Guilliman was asleep, he did nothing but dream of One Punch Man for 10,000 years straight.
Okay, yeah, not gonna lie, a little jealous of the napping time, as someone who's a little sleep deprived lately. And then he just woke up with super strength, more than normal, and is like, I gotta fight things. You know, kind of real for that. I too wake up and want to fight things.
He stood up, assessed the situation, and repeated his stunt on Calth by punching people to death until they eventually stopped showing up. This time he didn't have to contend with the lack of atmosphere, so you can be damn sure he was hitting even harder now that he could actually breathe. To once again speedrun his accomplishments, Fulgrim tried to tempt him into the service of chaos, which, come on man, stop trying to do that to Guilliman, it isn't gonna work. After it failed, Fulgrim said he'd never find satisfaction from anything ever again, which if anything just ensures he's immune to Slaaneshi corruption. Yet another common Fulgrim L. Nurgle tried to tempt him into staying on Ultramar by infecting the realm with a disease that could only be cured by being admitted to Guilliman's presence, but Guilliman saw that in the grand scheme of things he could save more lives by getting out and doing stuff, so that didn't work either. He
Didn't fall for the Nurgle trap. W.
He headed for Terra, but was kidnapped by Cairo's Fateweaver, who bound him in chains made of Guilliman's repressed emotions. Don't think about that too much. Scarbrand decided
I kind of want to think about it. What do you mean? What do you... By his emotions? What do you mean? He was awoken, surrounded by Ultramarines he did not know? Oh, then I'd be extra angry. Yeah, don't wake me up from my 10,000 year nap. don't wake me up from that.
to try and break Guilliman out so he could kill him himself, because all the Chaos Gods just want to get onto the party, apparently. And the Harlequins led Cypher to him to help him break free with his head still attached in exchange for being allowed to see the Big E. He also cut off Scarbrand's head during all of this, which is always a cool thing to see, because Khorne demons can go back to the hell they crawled out of. He reached Terra via the Webway with Eldar help, only for, surprise, Magnus and the Thousand Sons to have followed them, and now it's time for a battle on the surface of the moon. Magnus nearly had him dead to rights, and then the Custodes and Sisters of Silence showed up, and Magnus got shunted back to the warp. He had Cypher arrested once he saw the sword that was on his back, which turned out not to work at all, because it's Cypher. The man's more elusive than a politician being asked to give a straight answer. He talked to the Big E, started reading Lorgar's original holy book dedicated to him, and concluded that while Lorgar probably had a few things right, the Emperor is not a god worth worshipping. He immediately began restructuring the Imperium, as he rightly found it to be an incredible shithole. And when the High Lord staged a coup on Terra against him, which as an aside is astoundingly treacherous and moronic, Guilliman put his justice plan skills to the test and counter-couped them and killed everyone, really. That's how that story ends. With
Not shocked. That's how the story ends. Not shocked.
many traitors now dealt with, he launched the Indominus Crusade to keep the Imperium from fully shattering in the wake of the Great Rift. Something I'd really like to emphasize is how Guilliman managed to orchestrate something almost equal in scale to the Great Crusade all by himself in a shorter time span. Goes to show how far up his own ass the Emperor's head is, if you had any doubts about that. The Plague Wars happened, where Mortarion and Nurgle decided they'd quite like to take a chunk of Ultramar for themselves, and Guilliman once again found himself squaring off against a demon Primarch. Mortarion stabbed him with a needle filled with some super disease, the titular godblight of the novel godblight, and it killed Guilliman for real this time. Then the Emperor possessed Guilliman's corpse, told Mortarion that he was an asshole but could still be saved, and lit Nurgle's garden on fire before resurrecting the Blueberry Wonder. You might say that's plot armor to the highest degree. To that, I say that every single demon of chaos, as well as at least a few traitor marines, have the ability to resurrect themselves as well. It's not plot armor, it's evening the score. This is just the first time the Emperor has ever decided to actually get off his psychic ass and do something other than act as the galaxy's biggest lighthouse. As for a few miscellaneous things about him in the 42nd millennium,
Yeah, he kind of used a little tee-hee ha-ha on that. Just kind of like, He said he stopped being lazy, but I don't know. It kind of seems like he's kind of putting in a lot of work currently. I don't know.
As I said, he's been reading the Lectitio Divinitatus and coming around to the idea that the Ecclesiarchy and Lorgar may be onto something. Though as I also said, he certainly doesn't think the Emperor is a god worth worshipping, given how big of an ass he is. He came to that conclusion after talking to the man, by the way. A space marine that was in his presence was so awed by him that he found he couldn't speak, and as peasants he decided to go down to the workshop and cut out his own tongue. He's been having a hell of a time keeping the Imperium together, and has been more than happy to do things previously unthinkable, such as work with the Eldar and even pay lip service to the Emperor's divinity. He outright told an Imperial priest that he considers the entire Ecclesiarchy the lesser of many, many, many evils, but he's smart enough to know that it's one of the only things keeping the Imperium together. He's also apparently been developing a goddamn harem between Nervain and a rogue trader who calls him Robu. How cute. Sleeping with him would probably be like trying to fit a semi-truck through a door frame, but you can't blame a girl for shooting her shot now, can ya?
Okay, didn't need to know that, but thank you. Okay. The Alpha Legion killed a certain person that was holding the Emperor's soul fragment. When they killed that person, that soul fragment saved Guilliman at the next moment. Okay. Biggie, fine, I'll go save my son. Just calling Biggie lazy, not Guilliman. Okay, my bad. I misheard it. It's my bad.
Now, before we move on, I want to tell you why Roboute Guilliman is the best Primarch out of all of them. Do keep in mind that these are, of course, all my humble opinions, because when you say something is the best, it's always going to be subjective unless you're talking about something purely numbers-based. This next bit will probably be the most serious
Sorry, that's why I like math a lot, because you can't argue math. It's just, it is what it is, Lamau.
I've ever been in a video, because sometimes even I can find it in myself to have actual opinions on something without needing to punctuate it with a joke. Roboute Guilliman, for all his faults, all the times he could be cold and distant from others, actually cares about those under him. A quality that at any point in the Imperium is a rarity amongst the top leaders. While his strategic viewing of things means—
Sorry, unrelated, this is a very sweet moment saying like, oh, he's really nice. But on his little like part here in the armor, it says 13. He's Kingdom Hearts Organization 13. Okay, continue.
He's often detached from those around him. He will never put men to their deaths unless he firmly believes that is the only course of action that will win the day. He cares for those under his command, superhuman warrior or not, and indeed to this day tries to imagine what his foster mother would do in a situation such was the value he could place on the word of mere mortals. He is at heart a good man, even if only by the standards of 40k, and while other Primarchs could also be said to be decent people, few of them put it into practice like Guilliman did. It's one thing to lament you left a planet in shambles, it's another thing to nut up and actually fix the thing. He's also quite possibly the only Primarch capable of even remotely bringing the Imperium back from the brink.
The red font in here is hurting my eyes. Oh god. But yeah, he's an okay dad. I mean, considering the entirety that I've learned from Warhammer 40k so far, he hasn't really done too much that I'm like, wow, that's terrible. Ugh, I hate him. It's kind of just, it's just like you said, it's just vanilla. It's just like, it's like, okay, yeah, he's done some not so great things considering, but they are an entire like universe, planets, things of war. So I mean, it's not that bad. It's because the Ultramarines are the 13th Legion. No, it's because they're Organization 13 war boss. Good try though. Good try. I know it's Kingdom Hearts related. It's fine.
War is well and good, and in 40k you need to be capable of doing some fisticuffs to get anywhere in life, but only being good at war is something that only Khornate demons can get away with, and Guilliman is the ultimate statesman bar none. Not even the Emperor himself can compare, in my opinion. You need to keep people fed and supplied, you need to make sure industrial centers are kept up and running, you need to make sure supply chains are kept up and running so the people doing all the fighting can keep doing all the fighting. Guilliman knows all this. He knows this and knows how to optimize it so that everything is actually run well. Places he administers succeed because they actually perform well, not because they have infinite amounts of bodies that throw at the problem and eventually you'll drown the problem out in corpses. Guilliman is perhaps the only Primarch capable of seeing the Imperium from its worst enemy, itself. He's also one of the Primarchs who consider the ideals of the Imperium more important than the Emperor. In fact, he never considered the Emperor his father, only his creator. Quite frankly, he didn't like the Emperor, always holding it against him how he was forced to raise Monarchia to the ground, even if only in private. As far as Roboute cared, his father was Connor Guilliman, but he knew that while it certainly had flaws, the ideal of a united mankind is one to strive for in this mess of a galaxy, and he genuinely believed that he was one of the best suited to do this while commanding the best legion around. You can call it arrogance, but I don't think it came from a place of, I'm better just because I am. He could certainly be arrogant, but he genuinely felt he was the best man for the job in many.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's arrogance if he's actually doing a good job. I mean, I guess it would still be arrogant, but like he kind of did a pretty good job from what I mean. Like it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, all right, not that bad, all right. He's one of the less war crimey Primarchs to be sure. Oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, he destroyed civilization, but it's like, yeah, okay, that's considering what all the other ones have done that I've learned about so far, it's just not that bad. It's like, I got hit with all, like, the worst things in the world, and it's like, okay, of course they're in a war, so he did some bad things, and it's like, all the Primarchs seem to think they're the best. I mean, that's fair. If you have, like, if you're godlike or, you know, an actual god, it makes sense that they'd be a little arrogant considering, you know, normal people don't have those kind of powers. He understood that the Emperor only viewed the Primarchs as tools and probably would dispose of them when they stopped being useful. Yeah, that checks out. That makes sense.
Cases. And while this won him many enemies amongst his brothers, he rarely if ever held it against them. In fact, Guilliman also possesses a quality almost no one in this godforsaken setting does, the ability to admit when he's wrong. When he was introduced to
See, super humble. Okay, I understand. I wouldn't say he's like my favorite so far, But he doesn't seem like a bad guy, especially considering all, like, the Warhammer things that I've learned. I'm like, ooh, I don't like this one because they're terrible human beings. Like, you can't, I feel like you can't really hate him, but he's just kind of there.
Tactics he never considered or even knew of and was proven why they were effective, he would immediately implement them into his own. You might need to beat it into his head a couple of times, but eventually he will come around. And when shown that what he is doing is objectively wrong, such as when it was revealed that the Imperium Secundus was unnecessary, he immediately cancelled the whole thing and gunned it for Terra with all speed once Sanguinius made it through the traitor blockade around Macragge. Despite his occasional arrogance, he has humility, or at least the common sense to admit when he's wrong. Guilliman also, and this to my knowledge is quite unique amongst the Primarchs, also looks towards the future in a way that goes beyond just trying to make things better in the now. Rather than whine about the past and be blinded by the present, he plans ahead. When Rogal Dorn was busy banging his head against a brick wall because Pertarapo politely asked him to, when Leman Russ was busy drowning his sorrows in Space Marine grade alcohol, Guilliman acted knowing that just because the bad guys were gone didn't mean everything was good to go now. While Malcador is responsible for setting up much of the bureaucracy the Imperium has now, it was Guilliman who helped ensure it could run at peak efficiency. And while the Imperium today is an utter waste of lives and resources, it says something about Guilliman's abilities that even after 10,000 years it's still running at all, even if only barely. As for the...
I was very distracted by that image. It looked like a goat, so I was very distracted. I think I got some of that. I mean, he was now more... Wait, Linus much more humble and accepting of fault now after recent storylines. I mean, then he was now more than Guilliman. They're about equal now, I think. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I can understand why people like him, though. The Lion and Russ are my favorite, especially when they're together. It's fun to me the way they act. I mean, it seemed pretty... It's just... It's like, it's just not bad. Like I said, the way I could explain it is, as far as everything that I've learned so far, is it's just like, he's okay. He's the goodest boy for Tetra.
Codex Astartes, you can argue that it was a waste of using the Space Marines as a combative force, that they should have been kept together as legions to beat things to death with. That argument has merit, but even if you think he was entirely in the wrong with reorganizing the remaining Marines, you can't deny he was actually thinking ahead when he did so. He was trying to prevent something like the Horus Heresy from ever happening again. He was using his goddamn brain and trying to make things easier for the future. Maybe you think he succeeded, maybe you think he's an idiot, but he did something to prepare for the future, rather than either wallow in the past or stew in the present. And yeah, I get that it's understandable that the Primarchs weren't thinking ahead like the Oracle of Delphi or some shit. If someone stabbed one of my parents, I probably wouldn't be in the best state of mind either.
True.
But Guilliman did his best to rise above and plan, flawed though his approach might or might not have been. And the reason I think he's the best beyond all others is this. Guilliman, unlike any other Primarch, failed while he was on his home planet. Or rather, he believes that he failed and had to come to terms with the fact that the world does not revolve around him, that he is not all-powerful, and that with few exceptional circumstances, he and he alone is responsible for his own actions. And like I said, in my eyes, that makes him better than any other Primarch. He watched his father die in his arms, and he held himself accountable for not being able to save him. He had to come to terms with the fact that he was not good enough to prevent this tragedy, and grew as a person because of this. Most of the other Primarchs had no problem getting their way on their home planet, and this made it so that none of them had to come to realize what we all do. That shit can and will go wrong no matter how hard you try, and you just have to accept that in life. Even those that did fail found it easy to blame their failure on an outside source, the Emperor. Angron and Mortarion both resented the Emperor for coming in to save them at the last minute. They found him to be a convenient source to pin all their anger on, rather than look in at themselves. Guilliman never had this. He met...
To be fair, that's difficult for a lot of people to do in general, to just look back and be like, it's not my fault, you know, or like, hey, I could take this moment and learn from it. So it's kind of, I can't explain it in words, but that's very, I guess, like, mature, considering what could have happened and what happened with some of the other ones. It's kind of, like, wholesome in a way. Like, oh yeah, I know it's not this person's fault, and I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna be a better person. It's kind of nice. This is kind of wholesome.
The Emperor years after his father died, and in fact, I firmly believe that this makes Guilliman uniquely situated for being able to carry on the Imperium. Other Primarchs certainly had it worse than him. I mean, Conrad Kurz exited his capsule pod inside a pool of magma, for God's sake. But Guilliman is perhaps the only one who early on had to come to terms with the fact that the universe can just shit on you. And thus, I firmly believe that he's not only incorruptible, but will carry on fighting as long as he can without ever succumbing to despair. Before we end the video, how about a do or don't for using Guilliman? I gave Nagash one after all. well, and I guess technically Gotrek as well, even though it was like a minute long because he's Gotrek goddamn Gurnison.
Oh.
I should state that this will be for 40k and not 30k because I do not care for the Horus Heresy.
Oh.
For lore positives, Guilliman is the man in charge of the Imperium, so if you want the ultimate personification of a commander leading from the front, you can't do any better than him. If you like Space Marines, well, he's the father of about 50% of all the Loyalist chapters in the galaxy, since Ultramarine Gene Seed is the most commonly used, so it's hard to do better than him in that case. If you like the Imperium being about as close to lawful good as it can be, you'll also want to grab Guilliman. And if you like the idea of your soldiers being led by divinity, you can't do much better than one of God's sons. Also, badass bureaucrats, mostly an oxymoron in the real world, but very much in place here. Also, look at his model. I know GW has had problems with way over designing their models, see the Adeptus Mechanicus, but given that he's both the son of the Emperor and currently the only Loyalist Primarch available, I think it's fine here. Absolutely stunning, and his face isn't too derpy
Pog also comes with helmet. Wait, I think Tetra has this one.
either. For tabletop positives, Guilliman hits like a truck. This is of course to be expected, being a Primarch and all. His ranged weapon can chew through weaker hordes and even lightly armored infantry with ease, and can be good for at least shaving a few wounds off more heavily armored targets. Given that he also wields the Emperor's sword, he's pretty good in melee too. 6 attacks and an AP -4 and causing D3 mortal wounds on an unmodified wound roll of 6, it's gonna put the hurt on most targets. For more armored targets without an invulnerable save, he can also just punch the shit out of them with his massive power fist. While only being AP -3 compared to the sword's AP -4, it doubles his strength rating of 6 rather than only adding 2 like the sword does. He can also take a respectable amount of damage, rocking 9 wounds, a 2-up save, and a 3-up invulnerable save. Just ignore any Tau railguns and you should be fine for a while. Oh, and the first time he dies on a 4+, he comes back with D6 wounds. So you can kill him, and if he rolls well, he can come back almost at full health. That is one impressive middle finger to give your opponent.
Yeah.
Of course, as I've hopefully driven across in this video, he's much more of a planner than a fighter, and that's why you really want him. He has to be your warlord if you pick him, and by doing so, you get an extra 3 command points to dick around with. So even if he somehow gets tabled turn 1, you get some guaranteed benefits out of this man. Now, get ready for all these buffs, because Guilliman hands them out like candy. Any units with the Imperium keyword, not just Space Marines or Ultramarines, but the Imperium as a whole, can add 1 to advance and charge rolls within 12 inches of Gorillaman, reroll hit rolls of 1 within 12 inches of Garbanzo Man, and reroll morale tests within 12 inches of Gnome Man. On top of that, Ultramarines core and character units can reroll all hit rolls within 6 inches of him, and reroll wound rolls of 1 within 6 inches of him.
Okay, I'm like kind of absorbing about half this information because it's a lot all at once because I don't understand how to play it, but I think he's strong. I'm thinking so.
As well. Finally, Ultramarines infantry and biker units can heroically intervene within 6 inches of him. He is going to make sure your army is running at peak performance, and it has no choice in the matter. As for the lore downsides of using Guilliman, as the rule of the Imperium, he's not going to be participating in a battle if it isn't a major fight. He's got a galaxy-wide empire to run. He can't throw himself into every skirmish he comes across, so keep that in mind if you're a fan of smaller scale battles. Also, if you don't like Space Marines or Guilliman, you probably don't want to run Guilliman, the father of the Ultramarine Space Marine chapter. That should be obvious, but you never know. And of course, if Matt Ward is still giving you an Ultramarine hate boner after all these years, yeah, you're not gonna like Guilliman. Moving on to his tabletop downsides, there's a couple worth considering. You can't put him in a transport, so he's gonna have to footslog it across the table. At movement 8, this could be worse, but 8 inches isn't exactly breakneck speed, especially if you really want him to be somewhere specific. Also, unless I'm misreading something, I don't think he can deep strike either, so yeah, he's gotta just run it across the field the whole game. Honestly though, the worst thing about him isn't really anything with his stats or abilities, it's his point cost and properly using them. At 300 points, you're going to be hard-pressed to fill out a proper army in smaller games if you include Guilliman. And in larger games, if he goes down, you just lost a massive point investment that was probably also...
How many points are you allowed in a game? Because they're saying like, oh, 300 is a lot of points. And I'm like, yeah, 300 is a lot of points. But like, how many points are you allowed to have in total? Because he buffs people, which obviously you need a large portion of people to buff, like he's saying. So I'm trying to like... 2,000. Okay, and what would like 2,000 is standard. What would like a normal unit that he would like I guess like a blueberry would be? Because obviously you want an army to buff. Generally 1,500, 2,000 depending on size. Normal is 2,000. Anywhere from 1 to 2K usually. Okay, so like how much would like a normal non-Primarch unit be? Just like you do 500, 1,000, or 2,000 for a big Apocalypse games. Apocalypse mentioned. Okay, all right, and it would be because he's saying he's only moving 8 tiles ahead as well. So I'm sorry, this is like the interesting part where I'm like, actually, players agree to basic generic points values they both aim for. Okay, Because the way he's explaining it seems like super Pacos, there you are. It seems like it's a lot of obviously thinking for it, but like, because once he's out, you lose anywhere from like a fourth of your people, so that's crazy. It costs about as much as one of the big Imperial Knight mecha. Okay, because it seems super powered, and then it's like, oh, he's a lot of points, so it makes sense. Okay, all right, cool. Thanks, guys.
A keystone of your army. Additionally, his auras all requiring him to be relatively close to models means that you can't just keep him in the backline all game and farm easy kills. He's got to get to the thick of things sooner or later, and while he's certainly no slouch in combat, other armies have far better beat sticks and for less points. For instance, the Avatar of Kane. Really shouldn't surprise you, that's who I'm bringing out to compare him to. Caney Boy clocks in at 280 points, 20 points cheaper than Roboute. While Kane doesn't buff his army nearly as well, he can one-shot Titans. If you put Guilliman in a fight with Kane, you are losing 300 points. You need to balance out risk and reward with the Primarch, because while he's tough, he isn't invincible. And it'll be real damn embarrassing if your ultimate victory plan turns to smoke because Guilliman tried to charge across a field at a pair of Chaos Knights unsupported. He's incredibly strong, but you shouldn't use him as a beat stick. He's a general who can hold his own, but at the end of the day, that's probably your best bet for using him, as a general who can hold his own, not as the end-all be-all combat monster. And that just about wraps up my talk on everyone's favorite Grandpa Smurf. I hope you will embrace Guilliman's superiority alongside me now, or at least look at him in a bit of a different light. Thank you, of course, to my channel members. You are the theoretical practical meme to my Roboute Guilliman. Theoretically, you think my content is worth something, and practically, you give me money to help me keep making content. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching, and take care out there.
Is there something at the end? People waiting?
Yeah, I know it's an overplayed meme. I don't care. Eldar waifus are now canon. Suck my nuts. Give me more space elf smut.
I'm sorry, what? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any recommendations for future videos, please feel free to leave them in the comments below.